Samantha from JSummer Tutorials here, and today I am going to show you a fun way to create a mica shift. And we're essentially going to be creating mermaid scale earrings from polymer clay by taking the basic mica shift technique done with metallic polymer clay and just adding a few extra things to turn it into something really cool. And here is a sample piece of the test that I've created for today's video. So this is essentially what we're going to be making. Now, you can use any metallic clay you want. I would recommend pearl white for this technique. And I have Primo pearl white here, and I have Cernit pearl white over here. I'm going to start with the Cernit pearl white. And the reason I'm doing this is because Cernit has really nice metallic clays. They generally have a much stronger colour to them and a much deeper, more depth when it comes to the mica shift. I also am going to be using some alcohol inks. I'm going to be using this turquoise blue and clover green. Feel free to use any colour you want. And the first step is going to be to open those up. And always open them away from your clay so that you don't get any of the dried ink dust falling down onto your clay. And then all you're going to do, bear with me one moment, there we go. Then all you're going to do is you're just going to drop that ink down, and this is going to semi-dye the pearl white. Okay, and then just use a brush to spread that around so that you have a nice even coat of ink. Like so, and then just dry that brush off so there's not too much green on there, and then just spread that around to get everything covered. Right, and then once you've got a nice smooth finish, you're going to just let that sit for about 5 minutes to allow the ink to dry and sink into the clay. And again, remember, you can use any brand you want, you can use any alcohol ink you want, and yeah, so feel free to play around with it a bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, and there we go. That's how it should look once it's dried. Then you're going to take some micro circle cutters, one large one and one smaller one, and all you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to place it at an angle, and you're going to cut like so. And this is what's going to create that scale pattern. And if you want, you could use a texture stamp, but I thought it would be fun to show how to make your own one. And you're just going to go and do that the whole way down. And I am actually pushing through the entire layer of clay, so this is quite a deep imprint. And what this is going to do is it's going to both push the metallic particles in the clay down and distort them, and that's what's going to create the mica shift. But then the extra little fun part is that because we have the alcohol ink sitting on the surface of the clay, we are both pushing the metallic particles down and the alcohol ink particles, so our mica shift is going to have a little bit of colour to it. And again, you can use any brand of metallic clay to do this. You can try it with different colours. I'm using pearl white because that will show up the colours the best. But yeah, you could really play around with this and use any size circle cutter you want. The size is going to dictate how large those scales look. And then you would continue the whole way along, and you could leave it like that if you want. But then I'm going to take this one and I'll actually bring it back over once I've finished with this and show you what to do. Okay. Then you're going to take a piece of printing paper and you're just going to gently press down on the surface, and this is just to stick all the pieces back together and to make sure it's stuck to the tile. And I would advise doing that before moving on to the next step, which is going to be essentially the same thing. I'm just going to place this at an angle, like so, for each of the scales. And I'll do that the whole way down. And you can skip this bit if you want. You could just do one lot of scales, or you could do it like this. It's completely up to you. Okay, and there we go. Then you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to give that a thorough burnish. You want to flatten everything out. And also bear in mind, you could make a texture like that. It doesn't have to be what I'm doing right here. You could just leave the texture on the surface of the clay. That would work as well. And just burnish it like so. And everything should be flattened out. Does not need to be perfect, but just roughly flattened out. Then grab a flexible tissue blade and you're going to go in and you're going to take very shallow shaves like so. Like so. You just want to be taking off the very, very top layer of the piece. Okay, and this one I'm just going to be keeping the mic shift underneath, and then I'm going to do the same thing again but with the Primo clay, and then these parts that I'm shaving right now I will get in nice long strips, and then we can place that onto the top of the clay so that we have some double-sided earrings. The Cernit clay I find doesn't really lend itself to grabbing long strips of clay. You can see as I'm doing this it's kind of brittle and doesn't glide along, and that's fine because we're trying to go for a mica shift. But yeah, if you want the mica frills, then it might not be the best clay for it, especially when you're trying to get it so thin. But yeah, just continue with that effect. Okay, and I have actually decided to apply these little pieces to the surface, and I'm just using a little needle tool to kind of pick some out and then apply them. And I will show you how I do the other one as well, because these ones are going to come out with these really kind of flaky pieces, but I think that looks nice. And then I'll show you what I do with the Primo. But yeah, I'm just going to apply them at random. I'm not going to cover up the whole pattern, it's just going to add to the pattern. Okay, and when this bakes I do expect the clay to change colour a little bit because of the ink, and the longer you sit and work with them, the more that ink is going to impact the clay. So if you want things to stay as white as possible, you want to work as fast as possible, because yeah, that ink will continue to leak into the clay and affect its colour as long as it is raw. There we go. I'm quite happy with that. I don't want to cover the pattern any further. And once I'm happy with it, I will then use a piece of paper to burnish the surface so that everything is flattened out. Then I'm going to do the same thing but with a piece of Primo Pearl White so that I can show you how those little mica frills come out. And this is an important example of how the brand of polymer clay can really affect your results. Even if you follow the exact same steps of a tutorial, the clay consistency can make a big difference. So sometimes if you're having trouble, try a different brand of clay, or even a different softness of clay. Sometimes you have older bricks of clay and newer. So swap those around sometimes and see if that solves some of your problems, if you happen to have any. But there we go. I'm just going to pick that up. And there we go. That looks quite nice. Completely smooth. I'm going to pick that up off the tile and give you a closer look. And all those pieces over there can just, they can go off to the side and they'll be leftovers. And then we just pick this up, and You can see how that looks. I'm quite happy with how that is. And yeah. Alright, I'm going to pop that to the side. Okay, and there we go. This is the Primo one. And I am just going to shave it the same way as I did before. And as you can see, it's much easier to get nice long pieces of clay. And there you can see how those look. You can also see that the clay is a fair bit more translucent than the Cernit, and so, hold on, bear with me 1 moment. There. You can see that it's a fair bit more translucent than the Cernit, and so you can see the alcohol ink colour through there a lot easier than you would be able to with the Cernit. The Cernit appears much whiter. And that is generally why the Cernit gives a better mica shift, just because it has a lot more mica particles in the clay. But it does mean that it can be a little more brittle. Right, and I'm just trying to get these nice long pieces of clay, and then I can use that to decorate this veneer with it as well. But yeah, that's just to show how the two look quite different, and the only difference is the brand of clay. And I'm just going to keep those, and then I will apply them to the piece of clay, and then I'll show you what to do with the two of them. And there we go. That's how both of them should look, and I'm quite happy with how that turned out. I think they look quite nice. Bear in mind, you can do this with any texture you want as well, so don't feel like you have to do the fish scales. Alright, and I'm just going to make sure that they're facing the same way. I'm going to turn this one upside down, and I'm going to place this veneer on top of this one, smoothing them both down so that they're stuck to one another, because I want these earrings to be double-sided. And I might actually just stretch this out a little more, just to thin it out and to make sure that they're both stuck to one another. Alright, there we go. And I'm going to be placing resin on these. Alright, and the cutter I'm going to be using is this one. And I'm just going to choose a nice spot, and actually before I do that, I should flip this around and just trim it up a little bit, because I can see myself cutting out pieces that I don't want. And you can mix Cernit and Primo together, they go perfectly fine together. I have done that many times in the past. Alright, and let's see, I want them to face this way. I'm going to grab this cutter and I'm going to cut it at an angle, like so, pressing down, making sure I have a nice clean cut, and then I will repeat the same for over here. I'm trying to get multiple scale sets. Okay, again pressing down, there we go, and I'm going to see if I can get another lot out of this. Okay, there we go. Then I'm just going to peel those pieces up, and there we go, you got yourself your cutters. Also, all of that, you can mix that together and that will make a nice kind of blue metallic clay, and I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. But as for these, you're then going to take that, bring over a piece of plain printing paper, and very gently shimmy those up off the tile. Just run your fingers along the edge to get rid of any fluff that might be left. You can see there how the back looks. And you're going to place that on the piece of paper, and you're going to bake them on that paper for at least 40 minutes at Primo or Cernit's recommended temperature. And then when they're done, they're going to probably get a quick sand. I don't know if I'm going to sand them. I will think about it, because this top mica frill layer is quite thin and I risk ruining the pattern if I sand them, so they might get sand, they probably won't, but I'm definitely going to be applying resin to them to really bring out that colour and the metallic effect too. I just quickly wanted to show you what that colour of clay came out to be once you've mixed up all of the little pieces together, because I just thought that was interesting. Here's the original pearl white, and here is what it looks like once the inks are mixed in. So absolutely can use that for a number of different projects now. So there's really no waste in this project, so long as you use colours of ink that go together and don't make a muddy effect. Okay, and here is how they look once they're baked and out of the oven. And you can see there how it's cleared up quite nicely. Now, something I do want to point out is my oven did have a temperature spike, and so these ones have unfortunately yellowed. They were more towards the back of the oven, whereas these two were at the front, so you can see there is a colour difference there. So yeah, that is why they're a little more yellow, and why the backs will look basically the same as these ones, because the temperature spike did not affect them. This was the side that was facing up towards the heating elements, and unfortunately they did get a little bit scorched, but I actually quite like the look. So now I am going to be varnishing them with resin. You could use a regular varnish, or you can use UV resin like I'm going to. I'm just placing them down on a silicone mat. That way, if the resin spills at all, it's not going to get on my tile. And this is the UV resin that I am using. I'll just open that up. Okay, and then we're just going to apply a little bit of that to the surface. You don't need too much. Just apply about half of what you think you're going to need. Allow that to self-level out. And then I also will drag it to where I need to with a tool. But you don't want to apply too much, because that will end up spilling over the surface. And I'm most likely going to apply resin to the back as well once these have finished curing, because the back also looks nice. Okay, there we go. Then grab a pair of tools. I'm going to use these ball tools, and I just use that to take the resin and drag that out to the edges. And then they're going to go under the UV light for about 15 minutes. That's what my UV light requires. You could also put them in direct sunlight, but yeah, just cure them until the resin is completely hard. And yeah, then I will flip them over and apply resin to the other side. I might apply varnish, we'll have to see. And then we can assemble them. Okay, and here is how they'll look once you've applied the UV resin to both sides. And I think in this case it works quite well for both sides of the piece. But yeah, now what we're going to do is we are going to turn those into earrings, and they're just giving you a close-up view on how that looks. And you might see I've already drilled the piece, but I'll show you how to drill them in just a moment. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over a pin drill, and you're going to take that, and you want to make sure at the beginning of your project that your pieces are thick enough for this, if you do plan to drill them this way. So I generally go for about a 2mm thick piece if I want to drill through the sides, and then I use a very small drill bit. And then you're just going to drill from one side, and then you're going to go to the other side and drill, and generally that helps me make sure that the hole is lined up in the correct place. And you can see you're just going to drill exactly like that. You're going to keep swapping sides, and it helps keep the hole straight as well, because a lot of times, especially when drilling through the sides like this, I find that I go off center and end up piercing through the front of the piece, which is always just, well, that's the most sad thing ever, because you undo all of your work. But yeah, that's how I would side drill, and that then can be used for pieces that if you want to create earrings with, or you can use them now to create necklaces, and you can string that, yeah, you can string a string through there. Alright, now I'm just going to put those to the side, and I'm going to be working with this one today, with the earring. And I have chosen some seed beads that will match in colour. And here are the pieces. I've got a little loop ear wire and a regular ear wire. And I'm just going to take some of those seed beads, and let me just make sure they don't spill all over the place. There we go. And feel free to change up the earring design as much as you want. It is completely up to you, obviously. This is just the earring design that I'm going to go with today. And I think it's quite an effective earring design. Right, what you're going to do is you're going to grab your ear wire, you're going to open that up, and I'm going to proceed to string two of the white seed beads on. Then I will grab two of the kind of turquoise colour and string those on, and then I will continue to go through that pattern of doing two white, two blue, until I've reached roughly the middle of the ear wire, and then I will pop my polymer clay piece on, and then I will mirror the pattern on the other side. So very nice and simple. Okay, and there we go. I'm about halfway, and then to pop this on, it's very simple. You're just going to take that and pop the ear wire through the hole that you've created, like so. And then you're going to go and mirror the same pattern along the other side. Okay, and once you're done, this is how it should look. You can see, completely double-sided. Now, what I do want to do is, this is usually a ear wire on its own, but I actually want it to just be a component. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to grab a pair of round nose pliers, and I am going to simply use those to create a loop. And just bear with me a moment while I do that. It's a little fiddly. But you're just going to create a little loop, one that will wrap around the piece and allow you to then take your ear wire and attach that to the loop. Close up the ear wire, and there we go, nice and simple, and that way you have a nice perfectly round hoop. And I actually put the ear wire on the wrong way around, now that I realised it. Give me one moment. Just swap that around. Okay, and there we go. That is how both of the pieces should look. And I'd say they're quite effective. I'm happy with how they turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, also I do have another idea that has kind of bloomed from this idea, so keep an eye out for that tutorial. I probably will be recording that straight after this one. That might come out in a couple days time, so there'll be a link to that in the description below if it's been recorded. If not, it should be coming out soon. But yeah, if you enjoyed the tutorial, please do let me know in the comments below. And remember, you can change this design up. You can use the techniques shown or the design shown in a number of different ways, so feel free to make it your own. But yeah, if you enjoyed, let me know in the comments below, and if you liked the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it helps the channel out. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please do consider becoming a patron. There is a link in the description below, or you can join the YouTube membership. They're both exactly the same, and both are great ways to support the channel out. Another way to support the channel is to check out my Etsy store where I sell things such as the cutter I used in today's video. But yeah, I do hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.